Hello y'all, and welcome to YoungFolkKnits. Today I'm here to chat all about the new Knitalong Mosaic Mayhem, so stick around to get all the details. Hello y'all, and welcome back to YoungFolkKnits. If you're new here, my name is Casey, and this is a channel where I share all about my love of fiber arts. Sewing, knitting, crochet, spinning, whatever it is I might be up to at the moment. I also will occasionally share about living on a small farm here in Arkansas, where my husband, myself, and our children are beekeepers. We love raising gardens, we love animals, chickens, and just spending time outdoors here in the foothills of the Ozarks. So if any of that sounds like it might be your cup of tea, make sure and hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on any future video content. Today I'm so excited because I'm here to announce a new Knitalong, and it is called the Mosaic Mayhem Knitalong. So this is going to be a chance for all of us to get together, choose a mosaic knitting pattern, any designer, as long as it utilizes some mosaic knitting, and knit together as a community. Knitalongs are fun because you get the excitement and the support of knitting with others, maybe the same pattern or the same stitch or the same category of pattern, whatever it may be that ties it all together. And it's really nice to have that sense of community. When a new pattern by Amy Christoffers was recently released that utilized mosaic knitting, I thought this would be the perfect time to dive into a knit-along all about mosaic knitting. So I want to share a little bit about the rules of the knit-along, what pattern I'm going to be knitting, the yarn I'm going to choose, and then I want to share some really fun mosaic knitting patterns for inspiration. And very excitingly, we've got some free patterns to give away and some discounts as well. But before we jump into all of that, I'd like to say a quick thank you to today's sponsor, which is Skillshare. Skillshare is actually the largest online learning community for creatives like us. It has such a wide breadth and depth of topics that whatever craft or skill you're interested in learning about, there's probably a class for you. While knitting is my first love, I do have an interest in so many different crafts that I love to learn about. I love to become more proficient at. One of them I've mentioned before is watercolor. This is something I would love to be good at, but it doesn't come naturally to me. So I just jump at the chance to learn new tips and tricks in this area. And Skillshare is amazing for that because they have learning paths. So you can jump into this one area, watercolor, and they will take you step by step through different classes to help you become more and more skilled in that certain area. But I think a class that would be great for those participating in this knit-along is one about reading charts. If you're going to do a mosaic knitting pattern, chances are you're going to be following a chart. And especially for people who've never knitted solely from a chart without explicit written instructions, it can be a little daunting and overwhelming. Skillshare has you covered though. I love the class, How to Read a Knitting Chart, Beginner Friendly Tutorial. In this class, Madeline explains how a knitting chart works and then walks you step by step through 5 knitting chart patterns that you can learn to easily recognize just by glancing at a chart. By the end of this class, not only should you be able to read a knitting chart, but you should be able to read your knitting as well. So I think this is such a great little class. The community on Skillshare is great. You can post your projects in the class, you can see what others have done, you can get advice on what you're working on, and you can share with other creatives like yourself. So whatever your interest might be, photography, graphic design, illustration, knitting, crochet, sewing, watercolor. There will be experts and a great community to really help you hone your skills. And that's why I'm so excited to partner again with Skillshare this month. The first 500 people to click the link in my description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So choose a topic and you can get started today. Thanks again for sponsoring today's video, Skillshare. All right, let's jump right into the nitty-gritty of the Mosaic Mayhem. First of all, what is mosaic knitting? In case you've never heard of it, mosaic knitting is a technique where you use 2 or more colors of yarn to create these really intricate patterns and designs. But unlike stranded color work, where you're knitting along with 2 colors at the same time on a single row or more colors, in mosaic knitting, you're only holding 1 strand of yarn or 1 color at a time as you work across a row. And you make this work by slipping some stitches and knitting some stitches. Then you'll go back, slide your stitches to the beginning of the row again, pick up your other color of yarn, and you'll usually knit the stitches that you slipped and slip the stitches that you had previously knit, or some variation of that. This technique is known for being relatively easy compared to other methods of color work, like Fair Isle or Intarsia, stranded color work with multiple colors. And that makes it a really popular choice for knitters that want to have a visually stimulating project without the complexity of having to manage multiple yarns at once. So I think this is also a great way to dive into color work if you've never done it before. You do not have to have worked color work before to do a mosaic pattern. And I think it is a wonderful way to get a really fun textured product in the end with lots of fun colors and designs. And it can look very much more complex than it actually is to make. Amy Christoffers of Savory Knitting recently released the Polly cardigan, which utilizes mosaic knitting, and she is one of the queens of mosaic knitting. There's a few designers that I really think of when I think of mosaic knitting because they have utilized that stitch pattern in multiple designs. So Amy Christoffers is one I think of. I think we all think of the pressed flowers patterns. She, created a cardigan, a pullover, a shawl, a cowl, a hat, socks, a vest. There's lots of pressed flowers patterns. They were some of the most famous mosaic knitting patterns. I absolutely love them. And I also think of Natasha Hornby, who is Moonstruck Knits. Natasha has utilized so many different mosaic knitting patterns in her design work, and they are absolutely stunning. So I want to share about some of those today as well. Andrea Mowry is also known for a lot of mosaic knitting patterns, like the Shifty series. There's a cardigan, a pullover, there's a cowl, there's a shawl, there's a hat. There's quite a few with the mosaic knitting patterns. But she has a lot of different ones. If you search for mosaic knitting patterns, a lot of her patterns will be at the top of the list. However, today I want to share with you some that you may not have seen. And I am very excited because we have got some discount codes for some of these and a few free patterns to give away as well. The Knitalong is going to start September 1st, 2024, and it's going to run through December 31st, 2024. So to participate, all you have to do is work on a mosaic knitting pattern during that time and post either to the Ravelry group or on Instagram using the hashtag YFK Mosaic Mayhem KAL. So it's the YFK Mosaic Mayhem Knit Along. And if you post that on Instagram or into the Ravelry group, then you will be entered for prizes at the end of the knit along. So you do not have to finish a project to be eligible, and whips are welcome. It's a very relaxed knit along. It's just for fun. It's just to maybe give us the push we need to finish a project that we've had laying around or to do something fun. or to cast on something new and fun with the community. So many people are in love with the poly cardigan and are going to be making it very soon. So I think it's an awesome time to have the opportunity for some prizes. So if you want to knit that cardigan, it is absolutely lovely. It is a worsted weight gauge and it has a really fun quilt star motif along the body of the sweater. And then there is some pretty simple 1x1 mosaic stitches. It looks like possibly 2x2, but some very simple mosaic slip stitches for the body and the sleeves. And I think that the quilt stars are just so much fun. And the opportunity to play with color in this, I think, is endless as well. I decided I wanted to go with a little bit of a Scandinavian vibe, very farmhouse Scandinavian style colors. So I'm going to be using yarn that is milled and dyed for North Bay Fiber Company. I absolutely love North Bay fiber yarns. And I'm going to be using the Heritage DK, very kindly gifted as yarn support for the Knitalong. And I chose the colors Sandpoint and Chestnut. I think they're very complementary of each other. They do have contrast. They're not super high contrast, but that's a look that I really love. And I think that these are very neutral colors that will go with anything. And I kind of want a light cardigan. I have a lot of dark cardigans and I think this one will be really nice. So make sure and check out North Bay Fiber yarns because their Heritage DK is lovely. Also, huge fan of the Elemental Worsted, and there's just some lovely colors on both of those bases. The Heritage DK is a Targhee woolen spun blend, and I think it's just going to be a fluffy cloud of a sweater. So I'm very excited to get started, cast on, and get my mosaic on. Today I am wearing a recently finished mosaic sweater. This is the Tessellated Cardi by Andrea Mowry, and I test knit this sweater, and it did feel like it was a long haul to knit this one up, but I have to say it's one of my favorite finished objects. I absolutely love it. I love the colors that I went with, and I love the way it fits. I love the look of it. It's a very successful make, in my opinion. So this was knit up with the Farmer's Daughter Fibers and Spin Cycle collab on their Spinster's Daughter, which is a sport weight yarn. I also used the Spin Cycle Dyed in the Wool and then the Farmer's Daughter Fibers Oh Dang Surrey. So it does call for 3 different yarns. And if you don't like to use fluffy yarns, I think you could definitely get away with 3 different sport weight yarns or 2 sport weight yarns and a fingering weight. I think any of that would be just fine. But I really like how the fabric of this one turned out. So I am wearing that. It is August, but surprisingly this week we have had some amazing weather. Previously it's been like 114 degrees Fahrenheit, humidity very high. Well, the feels like temperature was like around 115. Actual temperature not quite that high, but here we have a lot of humidity, and that causes the feels like temp to always be sky high in the summertime. It has been amazing though. We've had no humidity. It's almost felt like fall, which has got me so excited for fall. This is not going to last except for a few days, and it's very rare to happen in Arkansas in August. I don't remember this happening before in Arkansas in August, but I will take it, and I am loving it, even if it only lasts a couple days. It's the most amazing couple of days in August, and it just has me so excited for all the fall knitting, and I cannot wait to get started on this cardigan. I want to share a few other patterns though, and I've added them to a bundle in Ravelry, which is called Mosaic Mayhem. I will link that bundle in the description so you can click on it and see a lot of different patterns. that I think would be great for this knit along. Now you are free to choose any pattern you want to qualify for the knit along. It just needs to have some mosaic knitting in the pattern. Now some of these patterns I am still waiting on the discount code to be set up by the designer. So what I'm going to do is put the discount code on the screen if it is available for the pattern that I'm discussing, and I'll also have it in the description next to the pattern so you can find it and use it for the different patterns that will be available to the participants on sale. I'm going to start off with one that Rebecca has very kindly offered to give away to one of you lovely knitters and offer a discount code to the rest of the participants, and that is the Daft Days cardigan. I think this is just so much fun. This is a DK weight yarn that she used Isire Jensen yarn, I believe, and it's a lot of fun for multiple colors. I think that this is great to use your hand spun in, and the reason I know that is because Omega from Skeins of Dreams is currently working on a Daft Days cardigan using one strand of yarn she had in stash and then one strand of her hand spun, and it's looking amazing. Mosaic knitting gives a lot of stability to hand spun yarn, and it makes the fabric look really, really nice, especially when you're using your hand spun with a commercial yarn. That commercial yarn has got so much consistency to it that it really helps to even out your fabric a lot. So this is one of those patterns that I think work really well in that situation. It comes in 10 different sizes. It has a 21 stitch gauge, and I think it looks really nice with 2 colors, but you can also use some scrap yarn and sort of change your contrast color every stripe or so, or every few straps if you want to make it last a little bit longer. And I think that you end up with a very cute result that way as well. So I'm going to put the discount code here on the screen. Thank you, Rebecca. You can use this code on the Daft Days cardigan, the Daft Days shawl, and the Alder sweater. I think that this would be absolutely wonderful mosaic knitting pattern for the knit along. Another one of Rebecca's patterns that I think is really fun in the mosaic world, and it's one that I have actually knit myself. I got to test knit it, and oh my gosh, the finished result of this sweater is off the charts. I absolutely love the fabric, and it is the Alder sweater. This is a sweater with a DK weight gauge, and it is knit up in the Sonder yarn Sunday Morning DK. So both Rebecca used this in her original sample, and I used it as well. Huge fan of this base. It's absolutely lovely. It blooms beautifully, and it holds those stitches so nicely in place with the mosaic knitting. So this has a bit more of a complicated stitch pattern than just your plain slip one, knit one, but it creates a stunning result. And by choosing either your darker color versus your lighter color for your main color or your contrast color, you can get a totally different look with this sweater. So I think this is absolutely lovely and a very fun, engaging sweater pattern, and it definitely keeps your interest while you're knitting it. A free mosaic pattern that I think is absolutely lovely. It was released this month, August 2024, and it is the Popple Shawl by the Lamb and Kid Designs. And I just think it's so much fun. You can either make the shawl or there's a separate pattern for the bandana. So depending on how much yarn you have or how big you want it to be, this is a really beautiful slip stitch pattern, and I think it creates a really fun wavy look. You can also choose different yarns. It calls for a worsted weight gauge, but I think you have a lot of choices here that can give you a different look. You can either go with something like the Diamond Lane Birdie, or you could do something more worsted spun and less fluffy, and you're going to get a totally different feel and look to the fabric. So I think it's pretty versatile, and with this shawl you don't have to worry too much about gauge. You could even just keep knitting until it's the size that you want it to be. So I think there's a lot of possibilities with that, and I love the fact that it's a free pattern. I'm also a huge fan of Brianne Moody, and I have a couple of patterns saved that I think are so much fun. One of them is the sideline wrap, and this is a super cool mosaic knitting pattern that is it's creating a double wrap of fabric to make a headband. In the winter you could wear it as like ear warmers, and by using different kinds of yarn you can get a different effect. So if you use something like color shifting yarn such as the Spin Cycle or Cascade Heritage or the crazy Zour bowls, you can get some really fun effects with the shifting of colors while only, you know, using that one ball of yarn as your contrast color. And I think that's really fun. But if you want to have a super consistent look to it, then you can use a solid color as your contrast color as well. And I think that can make a really nice put together look for this headband. So this is a sport weight. She used Spin Cycle yarns dyed in the wool and the Farmer's Daughter fibers, so copy, which that one is a fingering weight. So you could also use 2 fingering weights if you wanted to. And I think this it's very cute. I think it knits up in a very repetitive and easy to memorize stitch pattern. It's probably very potato chippy, and I think that's super cute. Another pattern by her, which has the same stitch pattern, is the Fogline shawl. I am obsessed with this shawl. I actually have yarn ready to go, and I'm going to be using some Farmer's Daughter fibers, Pishkin DK, and along with that, I'm going to be using some hand spun and some Spin Cycle Dream State yarns that I got from Black Mountain Yarn Shop. If you want to shop for Spin Cycle yarns, I highly suggest buying them from Black Mountain Yarn Shop, because you can text their cell phone and they will take pictures of the different yarns they have in that colorway and let you pick the exact skein that you want. I also want to share a few patterns by Hannah Sandler, or Sandmade Knits on Instagram. And one of them is the syncopated stripe sweater. So I think this just has some super fun mosaic design elements to it that don't just give you that regular striped sweater look, but instead, whenever you get close up, you can see how there's all these little offset dashes of different colors, and I think it's very visually interesting. This is a DK weight yarn, and okay, so it was the Explorer Knits and Fibers Rockies DK, which is a very popular base, and I know that Explorer Knits just always has really fun colors to choose from. But this is knit up on a US 6 and US 4 for the ribbing. That is what is recommended. And it calls for a main color and then 3 contrast colors. And it doesn't call for a lot of the contrast colors, so great way to even pick up like half-used balls that you have left over from different projects and mix and match, put them together for fun color combos, and you come out with a really fun sweater in the end. Another one I really like of hers is the interthreading pullover. So instead of the further spaced almost dashes in the previous sweater, this one has a more of an all over textured colorwork look to it. And I think that you can have a lot of fun with this by either choosing multiple different colors for, you know, each stripe, or for having a main color and a contrast color. And I think that would be a lot of fun. My favorite is the one that I see of hers, the green. Oh my gosh, y'all know I have a deep love of green, but it looks like she used a sort of beigey contrast color, a rust, and a blue, and I think it just all melds together so beautifully for a very classic look. And that was using the ZZ Textiles Classic Worsted base. So this is knit on US 7 and US 3s, and I think this is going to knit up really quickly. It's not going to be boring. You're not doing just simple stockinette, but instead you're doing some of the slip stitches to keep you engaged but not overwhelmed with different design elements. So I think this is really lovely. I like the fit of it. I love a drop shoulder and I love a top down pattern. This one just sort of checks all the boxes, and Hannah very kindly has offered a discount code on her patterns as well. So I'll put that on the screen and I will also put that in the description box. Thank you, Hannah. Another pattern that I think is absolutely lovely, very engaging, and in the end you come out with a project that just will have people stopping you and saying, where did you get that? And then when you tell them I made it, they are going to be blown away and highly impressed. So this is the Gither cowl, if I'm saying that correctly, and it is designed by the very sweet Amy Palco. I just adore Amy, and I think that this pattern is so much fun. I love how she really put the mosaic stitches to use with all of the different colors. I think that shawls and scarves aren't necessarily what everybody thinks of as the most fun thing to make. A lot of times in your head you're thinking you want to make a garment, but I find that shawls and scarves are some of the most enjoyable knitting and some of the items that I get the most use out of. So I think this is absolutely lovely. It is recommended to use a US 5 or 3.75 needle, and it calls for fingering weight yarn. I believe calls for 3 different colors. And it has 2 different versions, either a long version or a short version. So depending on whether or not you want to use, 100 gram skeins of yarn, or if you just want to use some 50 gram skeins, yet again, this would be great for leftovers, maybe from sock knitting that you have half a skein left. That would be perfect. Another pattern I think is so much fun is the Fosette Crop. And this is a tee by Knitty McPurly, and it is a DK weight gauge. So it's actually 19 stitches, and it calls for a US 5 and a US 4 needle recommendation. And I just think this is a lot of fun. I love the play of different mosaic textures throughout. And I think that this would just make an absolutely lovely, textured, interesting piece. I think that the colors that Devin chose for the original sample is spot on. It is something I would love to knit up and wear. And I think that even the baubles are very fun. If you're not a bauble lover, I think you could easily just knit that row and not include the baubles and it would look great. But it adds some fun texture. And this calls for, let me see, how many different yarns? Let's find that. This calls for a color A, B, and C. So 3 different colors. And it's just very, very lovely. Okay, let's talk about some fun socks. I am currently obsessed with the Alba socks, which is a pattern by Alina Malovich. And it is a fingering weight classic gauge for socks. And oh my goodness, this is just the funnest pattern. Highly effective color choice that the designer used, and I just love everything about this. It looks like there's 3 different colors used, maybe? Or maybe there's just 2. Okay, 2 different colors used, and you only need 50 to 60 grams of color 1 and 25 to 35 grams of color 2. So I think these would just be adorable to wear and to show off. Now, a shawl pattern that I have, and I have yarn waiting for, and I would love to even do it during this knit along, but I make no promises, is the Lune shawl, which is patterned by Natasha Hornby or Moonstruck Knits. Natasha has a real talent for making extremely beautiful and intricate looking designs using mosaic knitting. This is really Natasha's forte, and this pattern is no exception. It's actually one of my absolute favorites that Natasha has released. This calls for a fingering weight yarn and 3 different colors. So I did pick out 3 different colors. I bought last year or the year before from North Bay Fiber on their Elemental Fingering, and it is amazing. It's Cormo, and it's just off the charts, out of this world. I picked them out specifically for this shawl, and I really want to get this knit up. I feel like this would be possibly my most worn shawl ever if I could just get it finished. Test knits just keep bringing me down. No, I love the test knits, but yeah, I have not been very good at working through my list. A super fun pattern that I actually got to test knit for Maxim Sear is the Plump It Up shawl. Max has very generously offered this pattern at 15% discount on Ravelry by using the code Mosaic Mayhem. He'll also be providing some lovely yarn as a prize for one of the winners. So this is a very quick knit, and it is plump and lovely and so nice to wear wrapped around your neck. I did use the Walcart Yarns and Les Garçons fluff base. It has yak, and it's just incredible. The colors are incredible. The feel is incredible. I really, really love it. And you hold that double to meet the same gauge as the Spin Cycle Yarns Plump base, which is a bulky weight yarn. And using those 2 yarns, you get a super fun color shift. It gives it that really fun artsy look, and I really like mine. I wear mine as a scarf, so I wore it all winter. Last winter, it feels great wrapped around my neck. It's not itchy at all. And that's the way that I think this works the best. It's just the perfect size to double wrap around your neck and sort of tuck the ends into your coat. It's really lovely. So I think you could even hold 2 strands of the Cascade Wave together, and you're going to get that nice plump bulky weight gauge. There's a lot of different options, and I think that this is a super fun project. I also think that the Malabrigo Rios held double. There's some really lovely variegated skeins in that base. I think it would work so nicely as a contrast color as well, and just be silky soft and really nice to wrap around your neck. I wanted to share one more pattern that perhaps would be wonderful for you to dip your toes into and practice some mosaic knitting, and that is the quilt block dishcloths. Now, quilt blocks are having a moment, and I think that these are just some absolutely adorable quilt block designs, first of all, but I think it's a great way to use a mosaic stitch pattern in something that you could put to use as a dishcloth and practice. Make sure you feel happy with your tensioning and your gauge, and get really comfortable with slipping and knitting and the rhythm of mosaic, and not be working on your first garment perhaps in mosaic knitting. So this is a pattern by Laura Ayler, and it calls for a sport weight yarn. It looks like the designer used Knit Picks cotton, which again is sport weight, and there's some really lovely color combos in the samples. I am a huge fan of that sort of gray blue color with a cream. I think that always looks lovely. Like, when does it not? And I think that that looks really cute along with the red and cream, a very farmhouse dishcloth look. So this would be a really great way to dip your toes into mosaic knitting if you're interested. All right, y'all. I am so excited for a little bit of mosaic mayhem. I hope that you can knit along with us. And if you are interested in any of these patterns, check and see if there is a discount for them in the description. And I am very excited that I get to give away some of these patterns. So Rebecca Clow from the Crayabea has very kindly offered 2 patterns to you participants, and Hannah Sandler has as well. So if you would like to be entered to win one of these patterns, all you need to do is comment below and you're going to be automatically eligible to win one of these patterns. There will be at least 4 winners, and there may actually be a few more patterns added to the giveaway from some different designers, which I will let you know about on the screen. But what I'll do is, the order that you get in touch with me after the winner's announced, you'll have your pick of which one you want. Would you like a pattern by the Crayabea or by one of the patterns by Hannah? And we'll just go down the list as far as who gets in touch with me the soonest. But again, if you would like to enter, all you need to do is comment on this video. I'm just very excited. I'm going to chat a little bit more about the prizes in an upcoming episode, but there will be some very fun prizes for this knit along as well. And I just can't wait to get our mosaic on. So again, it starts September 1st. It runs through December 31st. Whips are welcome, and you do not have to finish a project to enter. Just use the hashtag YFK Mosaic Mayhem KAL. And let's see what your project is and what you're working on. And don't forget that the first 500 people to click the link in my description will get 1 month free of Skillshare. All right, y'all, thank you so much for hanging out. If you enjoy videos like this, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. And I'll be back soon. Until then, happy knitting, y'all.